This regime has many paid and unpaid active measures agents at its disposal.
Well, the people of Iran are winning. Islamic Republic is killing them, but they're winning. That's the bottom line.
The Islamic Republic isn't merely performing stability anymore. It's asking the world to certify that performance.
A lot of people on this team are part of the rentiering, corrupt, kleptocratic propaganda machine of this regime.
You're struggling with this pretend game, with this theater.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm struggling with it because one doesn't want to,
It's unbelievable. You're right to struggle. It's
well, I also.
Why would America surrender to Islamic Republic?
Right.
It's nonsense, Jian. It's nonsense. It is so unreasonably worded.
Hi there. They've been trying to convince us all that we should now move along, as if nothing happened. It won't work. Not because the Islamic Republic regime won't try, but because history doesn't disappear simply because the cameras move on. As if nothing happened. Even when all the attempts are being made, memories of real atrocities will never fade. And we should note that the mercurial mullahs and the IRGC may certainly try. They will continue to sell the normalcy lie as if nothing happened. The missiles stop, the headlines fade, the diplomats return, an MOU is signed, talk shifts from confrontation to cooperation as if nothing happened. A supreme leader dies, the regime prepares ceremonies not only to mourn him, but to reassure the world that everything is orderly, everything is under control, everything continues exactly as before, as if nothing happened. Team Melli returns home, the cameras find celebration, the Viking clap, really? Forced smiling faces, a welcome that looks almost festive, as if nothing happened. In much of the Western media, the story becomes one of athletes overcoming discrimination, immigration rules, travel complications, sporting injustice. Not the regime they represent, not the thousands of Iranians who've been killed over the years and the tens of thousands this year alone, not the families still waiting for justice, not those imprisoned without cause or being executed without pause, as if nothing happened. And maybe that's the real battle now, not on a battlefield, but in our minds. Look, the Islamic Republic isn't merely performing stability anymore. It's asking the world to certify that performance and doing an effective job of its propaganda to accept that this is normal. This is now permanent. This is simply the way things are, as if nothing happened. But things did happen. Atrocities happened. And millions of Iranians looked at this regime and said, no more. The world saw cracks that can never again be unseen. A generation found its voice, a diaspora found its purpose, and opposition largely unified behind a leader, and a regime revealed just how much force it requires to preserve the illusion of permanence. Look, you can change the headlines, you can stage the ceremonies, you can sign the agreements, you can move the cameras, but you cannot erase what has already entered history. You cannot ask a people to forget as if nothing happened, because something did happen. And it's been going on for 47 years, and despite every attempt to rewrite the story, that is the one truth they will never be able to bury. It's July 2nd, 2026. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 450 of Roqe, Iran Rises. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto, Canada. Salam Dostan Aziz, Durud bar shoma. I hope you're doing okay wherever you are tuning in from around the world. This is the 46th episode in our Iran Rises series. This one featuring a couple of our most popular regular guests to give us an update on how they see the situation for Iran and freedom and democracy these days. Bijan Kian and Dr. Shahram Kholdi will be joining me. We should know that we are recording this episode at approximately 3 p.m. Eastern Time here in Toronto on this Thursday, July 2nd, 2026. That's around midnight in Iran. If there's any breaking news we're missing, as things change so quickly in the Iranian space, forgive us. we do our best to keep up to date as much as we can. Now, just before we get going, a couple of notes. First, tickets are officially on sale for Roqe Live 6. They are selling. The good seats are going. We are thrilled to announce that Roqe Live returns Saturday, July 18th at the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts. This is in Richmond Hill, just north of Toronto, in the greater Toronto area. We invite you to come to Toronto for this if you haven't already come for the World Cup, or if you live somewhere not too far away, or if you are far away, take a flight and join us. This is the live version of what we do. This is the Roqe program. We do it live as a variety show in front of an audience, with interviews, with tributes, with performances. This edition, the lineup includes legendary singer and Roqe Media Icon Award recipient this time, Shahram Kholdi, who's coming, Tina Parsa, Shali Zomarodi, Dariush Azar, Pega Ganji, and I'm excited to announce that Iranian-Canadian karate star Mahta Qarai has been added to the lineup. I'll be there, hosting, of course. We'd love to see you there. Tickets are available now. Go to our Instagram page, go to my Instagram page, either of them in the bio. You can link to tickets, or you can go to the ticket page of the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts, or you can tell your favorite AI to lead you there, and get your tickets now for Roqe Live 6, July 18th, Saturday, July 18th, coming up. Secondly, if you appreciate what we do, our independent programming, and or you want to support us, you can do so on YouTube. Give us a like, give us some cash. You can, if you like what we do as an alternative independent media, just hit the super thanks button, super thanks on YouTube, and you can contribute to keeping Roqe alive and thriving. We really appreciate those who've been doing this. You are our lifeline. Thank you for that. Coming up on this 450th episode of Roqe, has the Islamic Republic managed to convince the world that it is stronger than it really is? Has the battle shifted from missiles to messaging? And are Western governments and media helping to legitimize the regime's narrative of stability that I talked about in the opening essay? Joining us today, historian and political analyst Dr. Shahram Kholdi, and former senior Trump administration official and longtime Republican strategist Bijan Kian. Let's get into where Iran and the battle for freedom and democracy really stands today. Let's get to it. Let me tell you about Avoca Chocolates. This episode of Roqe is brought to you with the support of Avoca Chocolates. They have a brand new location in Toronto. We are thrilled that this small, non-Iranian company in Toronto has stepped up to support us and Iranians at this time over the last few months. Noni Fembi and her staff at Avoca have been making handmade artisanal chocolate in Toronto for over 30 years. Family owned and operated, they have dedicated themselves to the art of making delicious treats, including truffles and ice cream and gelato made without compromise. Avoca has focused on high quality ingredients with fair trade chocolate, all made fresh daily in one of their 2 locations in East Toronto. Now, they've just opened a new spot at 689 Broadview Avenue in Riverdale, Broadview Danforth in Toronto. If you're in Toronto, go visit one of their great chocolate shops and thank them for their support and taste these delicious handmade chocolates. If you cannot go in person, you can get their chocolates and their products online at avocachocolates.com. avocachocolates.com. Thank you again, Avoca. All right, in a little while, we'll be joined by Bijan Kian. But first, let me get to our first guest on this episode of Roqe. Dr. Shahram Kholdi has been a Middle East historian and political analyst who has taught international relations, the history of oil, and modern Middle Eastern politics at several universities across Canada, including the University of Waterloo. He holds a PhD from the University of Manchester, where his research focused on the politics of memory and the historiography of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. He has written and spoken extensively on Iran's contemporary political dynamics, regime narratives, and regional geopolitics, and has appeared as an expert analyst in media and policy discussions, including testimony before Canada's Foreign Affairs Committee. Shahram Kholdi joins us from southwestern Ontario today. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Nice to have you back on the program. There's a lot going on in the world, a World Cup, geopolitical relations. Let me ask you first, because we haven't had you on for a few weeks, what is your overall assessment of where we are today in the conflict between the Islamic Republic regime and the people of Iran, if you will?
I think we are in a phase that I would rather call it controlled stalemate. in the sense that if you want to follow basically those classical scholars of the Cold War, who would understand everything in terms of ladders of escalation and rational choice theory, then, of course, the United States of America and President Trump are trying to play a combination of rewards and punishments game, whilst the Islamic Republic seems to be basically being totally, I would say, unaccepting of any form of calculation that would turn it into a more predictable actor. And of course, I see that a lot of people are right now deploying game theory to explain this situation. The problem that I have with it is that during the Cold War, if any actor, be it Cuba, the Soviet Union, any actor that anybody was talking about from the side of the Western academia, they were operating according to a very materialist and Marxist historical understanding of the world. We are not dealing with people who operate according to the materialist dialectics of the history of the world as were developed by Karl Marx or Lenin or practiced by Stalin. We are dealing with people who operate according to, and I do not want to be sounding like the people that were disparaged by Edward Said, but people who apply themselves in the highest form of Islamicist and Shia Khomeinist kind of ideology on the superstructure, but down at the bottom of their heart, they are operating according to a very complex calculus that, in my opinion, should be understood based on the way criminologists try to understand organized crime or drug cartel bosses.
But one of the things that they're doing, look, I started the show today with an essay called "As If Nothing Happened." They are trying to project stability. Not that we haven't seen that before, and project sort of a let's get on with it. Normalcy is back to the Islamic Republic of Iran, but they're not just performing stability anymore, in my view. They're asking the world as well to certify that performance, if you will. Do you think Western governments and media are helping legitimize that image that whatever happened over the last 6 months is now over and, it's back to normalcy?
Well, I hate to put it in these terms because I have a serious criticism in store against whatever Noam Chomsky says with respect to his views about mass media. But and I really believe in Marshall McLuhan's views, and I'm more of a Canadianist in that regard as opposed to resistance kind of oriented anti-imperialist worldviews of Noam Chomsky. But if you want to use a terminology that hails closer to home to especially those who play with this nomenclature,
manufacturing consent?
Yeah, I mean, like manufacturing consent is the terminology that it seems that the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, even to a certain degree, the Times of London and Daily Telegraph, they are all playing the game of manufacturing consent the way that the propaganda machine of the Islamic Republic wants it. And, when I studied, and I'm going to use this on your program, even though I haven't published the work yet, but let it be on the record here that the Islamic Republic has developed various organic institutions not only to control collective memory in terms of historiography and everything, but also has various tentacles of organs that play into trying to confuse people not only inside Iran, but also outside Iran through their various media institutions. And now they have very successfully deployed social media. I'm sure they are working with the Russians and others. And this is and this is the terminology, the Islamic Republic of Iran uses a media industrial complex. And this media industrial complex, that I call it Mindcom, has actually worked effectively for years. Over the past 10 years, they tried to keep the opposition divided by taking much of the battle against the Islamic Republic into Twitter, now X, and other platforms. Now it seems to me that every now and again something comes out of Fars News, something comes out of Tasnim News. These are semi-official and official organs of the Islamic Republic, Revolutionary Guard Corps, and others. All of a sudden, you see variations on the same theme published citing certain anonymous sources inside Iran. By the most notorious one is the New York Times.
Right.
So why
but Dr. Kholdi, it's not just media in this case too. It's governments. That's what I'm curious about. Governments have very quickly shifted to this mode of carrying the water, if you will, for the narratives of the Islamic Republic regime, to the point where the government of this country, Canada, where you and I sit today, is considering reopening an embassy, which was something that even under a liberal government was considered a no-go for years. Now, just months after a massacre of people inside Iran, there's such a sort of narrative of stability and normalcy has returned that's a proposition that can be put forward. What do you make of the way governments are, as I say, carrying that water?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people, bureaucrats in the government and people who supposedly advise the government, especially the academia that advise the government, and I have it on good authority that certain Iranian Canadians have been counseling who are academics, have been counseling the Canadian government to go down the path of co-opting the Islamic regime and in a way appeasing it, while at the same time advising them to send the devices and instruments of information to the Iranian people, like making Starlink and these things available. And it's amazing to me that some of these academic colleagues of mine do not realize that these are not mutually inclusive propositions. They are completely in direct contrast to each other. There is, however, a question of practicality, and that is the fact that there are people that we call them in Iranian sociological vernacular, the gray layer of the Iranian society. These are the upper middle class people who have businesses inside Iran, who have businesses in Canada, who have certain connections with the Islamic Republic, who have certain connections with major parties in Canada, who perhaps close to the Democratic Party or certain aspects of the Republican isolationist arm of the Republican Party. And they are now complaining that Iranians can no longer easily cross the border to the United States to do consular affairs, like things about personal status, getting something, affidavits going, IDs renewed, passports renewed, because of the very strict policies of the present administration in the United States. Some of them have difficulties. Some of them have served in the IRGC. They cannot cross the border to get their consular affairs done. So they are making a pragmatic kind of argument that you don't need to do much. You can just open a consular affairs office, like a consulate in the Canadian embassy, And actually, the Canadian embassy is on a street where I used to work as a resident legal counsel at a glass manufacturing company for a year. I exactly know where the neighborhood is. And just open a consulate and then open a consulate in Ottawa. The problem is that as soon as you open the consulate in Ottawa, the same way that until Trump came to power, the Protection of Interest Office of the Islamic Republic in Washington, D.C., has had numerous people working there who are not just doing administrative work. And goodness knows why Obama administration gave visas to these people to come in tens.
But how did we get here so quickly is what I'm asking to a certain extent. I mean, it's I mean, the IRGC is on the terrorist list in Canada, supposedly. I mean, that's in
the European Union
and in the United States, and yet this pussyfooting now. This everything's going to be back to normal. I mean, even if they don't say back to normal, the idea of opening an embassy, the idea of let's go by this MOU, which we've all shared our opinions about in terms of its being a version of selling out the Iranian people in many people's views. I guess my question is, has the international community, including, say, the government of Canada, already decided that the Islamic Republic is here to stay, despite the fact that many Iranians are in anticipation of understanding how weak this regime is, in anticipation of change coming within the coming months or years? Has the international community now bought some kind of idea that, no, these are the guys in power for the next decade or two, so let's do business?
Well, to cut the long story short, in my opinion, opening a consular affairs office at the Islamic Republic Embassy in Ottawa is opening a can of worms that will basically license bringing more people who will spy on Iranians in Canada, as opposed to just allowing Iranians to be more in touch with some of the basic things that they have to do in relation to their families. But with respect to the point that you made, in my opinion, since the First World War, and I stand in complete contrast to many of my colleagues, the West has always leaned towards appeasement of world bullies. And barring for certain blips, the Second World War, of course, very bloody and tragic blip, and of course the Cuban Missile Crisis or the Vietnam crisis, most of the time there has been an attempt at what I would call détente. The West is trying to arrive at some sort of a détente. The Europeans have been trying to arrive at some sort of a détente. The problem is this: the Islamic Republic is not operating according to the materialist dialectic views of the Soviet Union, who were completely secular. In certain respects, they were closer to the tradition of enlightenment of the West than the Islamic Republic.
But am I wrong to think it's a paradox somehow, or if not the height of hypocrisy, to have just 2 or 3 years ago finally proscribed the IRGC onto the terrorist list, and now, I mean, what has just happened in between? A massacre of Iranians at the hands of this regime. Now, after that, let's seek détente. I mean, is that not a paradox? Am I missing something?
It is beyond a paradox. It is oxymoronic. And it is not just moral hypocrisy, it is also a sign of practical incompetence and inability on the side of the Europeans and Americans. Basically, what the signal that they are sending to this regime is this: that, for instance, we killed your leader, we have destroyed 70% of your military-industrial complex, but since you can still inflict gravely upon the export of energy through the Strait of Hormuz and disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, and that can basically lead to higher gas prices in Europe, United States, and Canada, as a result of that, and because the Iranian people, despite all sacrifices that they have made, they haven't been able to bring you down. So how can we basically come up with some sort of an arrangement with you? So this is an agreement on the side of the Western countries that they are agreeing amongst each other, basically, that dealing with the Islamic Republic aggressively does not work. So the détente of Obama didn't work. The risings of the Iranian people haven't worked. The Trump 40-day war didn't work. And they think that the 40-day war is over. At a different session, I will be discussing with you why I do not believe that this war is over yet. And now they are counseling Trump that, okay, let's come up with a way that we help this regime to change from within. And I believe that in his heart of heart, Trump would rather see that kind of change to take place from within this regime. And I believe that anybody who thinks that their fortunes will prosper this way are going to be proved tragically wrong.
With since you mentioned his name, with the MOU, did Trump sell out the Iranian people, the people that he promised to support, and get out in the streets? We will, we have your back. We're coming.
Not exactly. I would rather give him, as of yet, hitherto, the benefit of the doubt, because we just heard 2 days ago from Wall Street Journal that he was seriously considering another round of perhaps 30-day, 40-day of strike. The problem is that any such effort is half-baked. If you do not send special forces to yank out the leadership of the Islamic Republic, this cat and mouse game will go on ad nauseum, and the Iranian people will suffer. The world energy markets will suffer. I think the Israelis conveyed it to Trump in so many words that we need to send special troops. We need to send boots. We just need to help to flip this completely, I would say, imbalanced equation in favor of the Iranian people, so that they would have basically all the abilities that they need to have to come out.
But Dr. Kholdi, if with respect to, for example, that 100 billion that is unfreezing of assets, the 300 billion reconstruction fund and all of that, for you to give President Trump the benefit of the doubt would mean that would all need to be bullshit. Then, right?
I appreciate the challenge. First of all, I think the numbers are massively exaggerated. In a world that Elon Musk is a trillionaire, $20 to $50 billion is nothing, especially in view of the economic shenanigans that this regime is trying to play out. The number of mouths of the 3-4 million people that it's trying to arm to the teeth to crack down on Iranian people, $20-30 billion is nothing. That $300 billion is a big, as we say it in Persian, darabag sabz. That is like it's showing the green door of the green gate of a garden that actually has no fruit and no trees in it and is desert. Nobody, when the Arab countries in the region are putting a case together to demand reparations from the Islamic Republic for the damages that it has inflicted upon the infrastructure, it's just impossible to fathom how they are going to commit themselves to $300 billion that would not be all grants, but most likely most of it would be loans. And the Islamic Republic wants to do whatever it wants. So no, it is not that easy. And even when Obama signed the 2015 JCPOA nuclear deal with the Iranian regime, many Western banks because of the shambolic state of the Iranian banking system and the corruption of the Islamic Republic, were refusing to do business with it. So this, any agreement, even a final, let's say, ideal Trump version of nuclear deal, would be dead on arrival.
Okay. Before I let you go and get to Mr. Kian, let me ask you, in terms of that, selling that narrative of stability and normalcy and even victimhood that the Islamic Republic regime seems to be quite proficient at. Let me just ask you about Team Melli, and perhaps this will be the last time we have this conversation about Team Melli, mercifully for a while, because the World Cup has moved on from them. But it seems the Team Melli, or the Islamic Republic regime team, whatever you want to call them, story is quite striking. In much of the Western conversation, over the last couple of weeks, the players have come to be seen primarily as victims, victims of immigration, victims of political discrimination, this little underdog team that I saw a lot of sportscasters supporting because they represent, even when they said they represent the Islamic Republic, the country that's been put upon by the big United States, etc. And of course, this being a team that many or most Iranians did not support on the basis of feeling like nothing against the players necessarily in some cases, but feeling like it was just an asset, a propaganda tool of the regime. That disconnect is striking and plays to the heart of how this regime has been, continues to be very effective at selling a narrative. Yes?
This regime has many paid and unpaid active measures agents at its disposal who have learned the game of pay for play by this regime, whose consulting think tanks, whose academic work depends on being able to go to Iran to do field work. As a result of this, a lot of people are doing their bidding and manufacturing consent. But the problem is that nobody talks about the fact how these soccer players, you are an expert in this field. Why is the average age of the Iranian team so high? They cannot really, they don't have the stamina. Teams that have an average age of 25 are struggling.
Right.
Not to mention a team whose this is
much higher. Where are you going with that? What is that? What do we learn from that?
A lot of people on this team are part of the rentiering, corrupt, kleptocratic propaganda machine of this regime, have been promoters and enablers of the crackdown and brutal I would say suppression of this regime. These people are regime agents in the end of the day. They are not like the women's soccer team that because they were women, because they are women, they even the most privileged of them realize how much they are hard done by, how much they are discriminated against by this regime, and most of them wanted to take refuge to Australia and seek asylum there. These people are not like that. They are effectively the regime's own men. And I would say the Ayatollah's own men.
But you're making the case against what some would call Team Melli. That's understood, and many would agree with you. But my point is, that seems to have worked. It worked on the Western media, that these guys are the victims.
They don't dig deeper. They want to see them as if they are like soccer players in any other country. That is not the case. They would not allow, and many of the younger generation soccer players would not qualify to play in this team, and would make sure that this team would at least get to the next round, because they are mainly the Gen Zers who oppose this regime. And the problem is that the propaganda machine, the media industrial complex tentacles of this regime extend far. And unfortunately, they have managed to co-opt, in my opinion, much of the Western media. And I don't care. I will name it. Parts of the BBC, parts of the CBC, parts of the CBS. But they have another, I would say, ulterior motive. They are all anti-Trump. if Trump was not president, I'm not too sure if we would have seen the same pro-Iranian team propaganda
Right.
as we see it right now. And I think that would pretty much close my argument in this
That
regard.
makes sense. As ever, I know you have a heart out here. I really appreciate you coming on. It's an historic date where you peppered your comments by quoting Noam Chomsky. I didn't think I would hear that from you, but hell freezes over once in a while. So it's always a pleasure. Thank you for this, Dr. Kholdi.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right, and let me turn to our next guest. He is an experienced Iranian-American global business leader and former U.S. senior official with over 30 years of experience across public, private, and non-profit sectors. Twice confirmed by the U.S. Senate, he served in senior roles under the 43rd, 44th, and 45th presidents and chaired the audit committee for a U.S. government agency. He also had key economic roles in California, including Director of Foreign Investment and Economic Development Commissioner. He obtained his education from Brighton, Harvard, Oxford, and MIT. He has lectured at top institutions around the world. Joining us from the Los Angeles area, one of our favorite regular guests, Bijan Kian. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jian. Good to be with you and your viewers and listeners. These are exciting times, and everybody's trying to wonder what's going on.
Right. Well, that's why we bring you on. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for making the time today. Let me start with something of an omnibus question. I mean, I haven't had you on the show for a few weeks. So let's start with a general sentiment. What is your overall assessment of where we are today in the conflict, if you will, between the Islamic Republic regime and the people of Iran?
Well, the people of Iran are winning. Islamic Republic is killing them, but they're winning. That's the bottom line. Why do I say that? Is because the institution's symbol is removed. Power is no longer. The symbol of Islamic Republic was Khamenei, is no longer. First, second, third layers of command, control, and communications are destroyed. The Islamic Republic is left with no real navy to talk about, no Air Force to talk about, and of course still talks big and threatens the whole world, its own people, but the people of Iran are the ultimate winners here, without a doubt.
That'll come as a great deal of for a lot of Iranians. That there'll be a lot of solace in what you've just said, but we'll have to work our way through it in terms of why you said that. One of the things that the Islamic Republic regime is doing, which will come as no surprise to an expert like you over the years watching them. And I started the program today with an essay called "As If Nothing Happened." They're projecting, carrying on with this idea of this performative idea of stability, normalcy, if you will. That's nothing to see here. Let's move forward, which obviously benefits a regime that's been on its knees or weakened greatly in recent months. One of the arguments that I'm trying to make is that the Islamic Republic isn't merely performing stability anymore. It's asking the world to certify that performance, and to a certain extent, we're seeing that in Western media and governments helping to legitimize this regime again and interact with it as if it is a legitimate, stable government. Do you see that? And how do you believe that this regime is so effective in getting governments of the world, and obviously the media, to carry water for it?
Diplomacy is a funny game. Sometimes it looks like make-believe. Couple of rules. If you're a victor, you don't really stand up and say, thumb your nose to the defeated party, because the whole purpose of the military engagement and use of force was to change behavior. You don't want to kill them. You want to work with them, and you hope that their behavior will change. However, in the meantime, diplomacy is in the business of pretending, oh, you are changed, you're good, you're going to be a good diplomatic operators, we can talk, we can do a deal. All of this is necessary theater of diplomacy, not real at all. And when you win, you don't stand up and say, yeah, I beat you, you're miserable, you're defeated, you're done. Why? Because you want to continue that relationship. You don't want to kill it because the cost of engagement is going to continue to go up. You're constantly trying to keep the cost down. Now, there's some other important factors here on the table for President Trump to consider. Number one, President Trump and this administration didn't come to the table to change the regime for the Iranian people. Not that the Iranian people don't count at all for President Trump, but it is unreasonable, Jian and distinguished listeners and viewers, to assign the responsibility of welfare, prosperity, and peace and freedom for the Iranian people to President Trump.
No, no, but he did say, "Go out in the streets. We'll come and support you and
Correct.
and
That's
be there
correct.
for you."
That was
Yeah.
wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong, and I think he realizes that that was really a very, very, very delicate subject that needed a lot of explanation. What does it mean? Help is on the way. What kind of help is on the way? And it is true. Some Iranians are saying President Trump betrayed us. And I can understand the emotions, but there's no logic to that. A betrayal happens in the face of a commitment, of a promise. There was no promise. There was a statement. It shouldn't have been said. I am sitting here and saying, President Trump would always carry that statement. Help is on the way. What kind of help? And I think that's one side of the story. The other side is people of Iran did not have a single voice. All of a sudden, they found a leader. The leader called to action. They responded to that. And unfortunately, nobody can really sit here and say, oh, I knew that if we do this, the brutality would be at the scale that we witnessed, that we saw. It's very unfortunate. And we say unfortunate as if it's just statistics. It's not. It's the pain in the hearts of all those mothers and brothers and sisters and all of us.
Yeah, and
We
that's
are
that sense of betrayal. Look, a lot of people turn to you and gain a lot of hope and confidence from your words. That sense of betrayal, that memorandum of understanding, that MOU. I haven't had the occasion, the fortune to be able to talk to you since that thing cropped up. That feels like betrayal
Let's
to a
go
lot.
over it. Let's go over it one by one, Gian.
Well,
Because
I just want to finish what I was going to say which is that the only case that can, I think, really, I mean, honestly, the only case that can be made that isn't bad news for people like yourself and everybody, myself included, that's been hoping for change inside Iran, is that it's not worth the paper it's written on, that it's some sort of feign, that it's some sort of ruse, that it's some sort of, as you say, theater. But how much of this theater do we have to entertain before we start to worry? I mean, that's so talk to me about the MOU. I haven't heard you on this. I want to know what your thoughts are on this.
yeah. So, it's dangerous for the unarmed eye to read diplomatic text. Why? Because, what's the popular word? Oh, they gave it all away. $300 billion in investment goes to Iran. They're going to give all the controls. America is surrendering. But this is all because you're not reading the text. You're not reading the text precisely. Diplomatic language needs surgery to understand. Things are said intentionally vague.
Okay,
Things are
school us,
intentionally veiled.
school us.
Yeah, let's go through it one by one. One by one. You have the MOU.
No,
Let's just
we don't need to forensically go through it. You're telling me that from
I
what
can tell you.
go tell,
there's
tell me
language.
tell me why we don't why we shouldn't be worried about this being the representing the precipice of a new sort of normalization of relations that keeps this regime in power based on the United States enabling it for the next decade.
Well, let's take just one of the requirements that the United States has to move all of its forces from the vicinity. The word is vicinity. What is vicinity? 100 miles, 200 miles, 50 meters? What is vicinity? Does that mean the Fifth Fleet is going to have to move from Manama to where? How? It's nonsense. Jian, it's nonsense. It is so unreasonably worded that leaves so many possibilities open that I think it's unreasonable to read it any other way. How? How do you define vicinity? What is performative, as you mentioned it? The $300 billion. What is it? Is it a gift? Is it a concessionary piece of incentive given to the Iranians? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is a non-concessionary, regular financing package with guarantees from various countries, and it's conditioned to a lot of things. I say a lot of things because if I were to list all of the requirements for such a package, uh, you would get almost bored. It
But
takes
but,
about
but
6 months to evaluate
you
the
know I
Iranian.
respect you so greatly. But it doesn't this aren't the goalposts moving here? Didn't we spend years or blood, sweat, tears saying no deal? Doesn't this represent some kind of a deal?
There's no deal.
Hmm.
There's no deal. What kind of a deal is it if I offer you, Jian, that you could jump from an 80-story building without a parachute? If you make it down to the ground, I'll give you $10. Is that a deal? Is that a good deal? No. You have to read this without the emotions that usually come with this kind of work. It's difficult. It's difficult because of precisely what you said. All of the emotions that
What
built up
I
over
mean, does
47 years.
Ted Cruz, some of the former or the ongoing allies of President Trump and this administration, do they not understand diplomatic language when they say this is the worst possible deal and memorandum?
Oh, remember I said the theater. Remember, I'll give you an example. Have you heard that the perception, and I think Iranian Islamic Republic, not Iranian, Islamic Republic officials alluded to this. They said, look, yeah, there's dissent between us here in Iran, but there's also dissent in the United States between Rubio and
Vance.
Vance, J.D. Vance, Vice President Vance. What is your reasonable assessment of that? Let me just deliver this to you. There's absolutely zero possibility there is disagreement between the officers. Rubio and Vance have no disagreement whatsoever. They are operating under direction of Donald J. Trump. Do not doubt that. Absolutely not. So what is left? Theater, Xian. Theater. You've all
And
heard about
in that theater
good cop, bad cop theory.
in
All the
in the theater is included all the things he says, I guess. Like I like Ghalibaf, this regime. We've had regime change. Let's work with these guys now. All of the things that he says, that's part of the theater too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Why? Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense any other way. I mean, yeah, people who read this objectively, not the reporters who are paid to write an article, which is, yeah, of course, they will say, gave it all away. America is defeated. America went to ask for unconditional surrender, but ultimately unconditionally surrendered to the Islamic Republic. Does that make sense?
What
Doesn't make sense.
and what of the rest of the world? I mean, for those of us who are alarmed by the fact that the Canadian government, we were just talking about this, that only 2 or 3 years ago put the IRGC finally on the terrorist list, is now talking about opening diplomatic relations, an embassy, a consulate, the kinds of things that were anathema, 2 or 3 years ago to talk about. And this is after they've just killed 40,000 people in 2 days. So I mean, what are we to make of that? Is that part of the theater? It doesn't seem like it is.
I believe these are all diplomatic nice talk. It means nothing until it's done. Gian, a lot of things are said, but they're said for a purpose, for an objective. I think the proper question to ask is, what do you think is the objective? Why are they talking from both sides of their mouth? And why are they confusing the whole world with this on one day, off the other day? This is absolutely maddening process. I agree. But why? Why are they doing that?
Well, they don't
Why?
seem they don't seem like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth anymore. They seem like they're saying, "All right, time to move on." The regime is in power. We got rid of some of the big dogs, and they were replaced. The war didn't work, so let's move forward. I mean, it doesn't. I don't hear a lot of government leaders in the West saying, agitating for going after these guys the way we would have heard even 3 or 4 months ago. Even some of the Western government leaders were never on board, but certainly from the Trump administration and some of the allies, we were hearing that. We're just not hearing it today.
Yeah. In diplomacy, you are trying to avoid war. And as long as you're trying to avoid war, you will say whatever it takes that matches the times and the requirements. In fact, the nicer you are to bad people, the closer you are to their defeat, without a doubt. Because look at them. Assess the Islamic Republic today. Where does it stand? Where does it stand? Let's just be real about this. We are playing games with their heads. Guess what? They're playing games with our heads. So everybody is playing games. Do you think Alibaba doesn't know that the fight between Vance and Rubio is not real? It can't be real. And you should ask the question: how about over there? Is there a true dissension, a true opposing force right now standing between Alibaba and the power? Of course there is. Of course there is. And are they more solid together than the Washington? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So you're struggling with this pretend game, with this theater.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm struggling with it because one doesn't want to,
It's unbelievable. You're right to struggle. It's
Well,
unbelievable.
I
Why
also
would America surrender to Islamic Republic?
right. Well, I mean, or let me put it this way to you. Let me accept everything that you're saying. I mean, I certainly think that there's reflexive anti-Trumpism that exists too. That people just sort of, anything they assume anything is nefarious. But let me and I don't agree with that. But and I was on board, if you remember, with intervention. I mean, I have been aspirationally agreeing with you along the way. What I want to let me just ask you this, and maybe it's a naive question: why sign the MOU at all? I mean, if it's all theater, why go that far? Why just not leave this at for now as some sort of a uncomfortable stalemate until the next moves? What does it accomplish, the MOU?
The MOU accomplishes the main goal of the United States, which is stopping from Islamic Republic from building and using a nuclear bomb. Of course, I have to say this. It's a stupid idea for any nation to build a bomb without calculating second strike. In other words, you develop a bomb, you drop it, you kill a lot of people. Now, what about the response? Can you take the response? Number one. Number two, can you launch a second strike? Impossible. Such a thing is not going to happen. It's a stupid plan to pursue anyway. But the whole goal, as been stated many, many times, is to stop Islamic Republic from furthering its nuclear program. That's the ultimate goal. Now, it's a reality that we have an election coming up. President Trump is definitely worried about that election and would calibrate things in order for timing of any further action. But I sit here, I was going to rudely interrupt you just to say, I'm not making statements. I'm asking questions. I'm assessing the reasonableness of the hoopla that is created by the administration, by this MOU. Read it. Read the whole thing. You know what the last sentence of the MOU says? You know what the last sentence says? It says, ultimately, it has to become operative under a UN Security Council resolution.
Yes. There's all kinds of steps ahead that there's all kinds of it's a minefield. Yeah.
when you look at it, the materialization of all of these awful things uh, is hinged on impossibility in some cases. And plus, look, the people of Iran are not looking to President Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu to make decisions for them as to what they need to do and what their future looks like. If you're looking for somebody whose worry, priorities, the people of Iran, it would be Prince Reza Pahlavi, not Trump, not Netanyahu. Trump and Netanyahu would follow their own. I mean, this may help you to understand. Let's assume this is the worst deal for the Iranian people. Let's assume that.
Okay.
And then ask the question, is Trump responsible to the Iranian people? I mean, this, what I'm saying is
No, I don't think I agree with you. I think most Iranians have never thought that Trump operates with the, with only the good interests of the Iranian people in his heart. I think that everyone understands there's a quid pro quo, and there's
Iranian people would continue this fight and they're going to win it, and it's not sustainable. And I assure you, relying on logic and logic alone, that this administration knows that. They
okay.
know that the gap, the sea of blood between the people of Iran and the Islamic Republic is so vast, is so deep, it will never be corrected. Everybody knows that. They're
Okay.
just trying to get to the next level and not speed up expedite the escalations of the crisis ladder.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, that I was that I was mentioning earlier, I didn't actually want to go through the MOU because I just feel like we've been doing that for a month, and there's a lot of opinions about it out there, and we've kind of exhausted it to a certain extent. But where I was going with the narrative that the regime is quite effective, I believe, at peddling, which is that nothing to see here, as if nothing happened, stability, normalcy. And this is sold in a number of different ways. And I feel like when that narrative gets picked up by Western governments and media, and I think, if you will, Team Melli was a big part of this. Most of the Western conversation over the last 2 or 3 weeks has not been about how this team is an asset of a murderous regime. It's been about, look at these poor victims of political discrimination, and these little underdog guys that came here and almost won, etc. And I think the danger in the efficacy of selling those narratives is that you then get governments that maybe the government of Canada is in this category with these overtures towards diplomatic relations that say, you know what, looks like this regime's going to be here for another 10 years. Let's bank on that. Let's go back to trying to figure out how we deal with them rather than the possibility of real change. And that I think feels very dangerous for a lot of Iranians who've been hoping for change.
I cannot disagree with you. This has taken so long. 47 years, half a century is a long time. But to place all the blame on entities and individuals whose priority is not, and logically should not, be the welfare and prosperity and peace for other people, it's unreasonable.
Fair.
It's been too long. It's been too long. And they are following their own interest. And now let me go back and review. You said something about my conversations with people that would like to listen to me.
Yes.
In my conversations, I've always said the following: President Trump follows the interest of the United States, not the people of Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu's priority is the welfare of people of Israel and the territorial integrity of Israel, not the people of Iran. Ultimately, it is the people of Iran who have the right and the responsibility to rise up in the right way and topple this government. I have said that consistently, never relying on what President Trump wants to do or Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to do. I have always relied on one sustainable, logical factor: the people of Iran. They're not going to give up. And why do I say that confidently? Look, I'm not paid by anybody to write anything or say anything. So what I say is my belief. What do I base my beliefs on? Facts and logic, not hoopla. Because hoopla gets us to where things become unbelievable, you know, and then we keep questioning and we don't get to the answer, and then we get frustrated, and then we become unreasonable as a result. And we just bang on the subject. Why do you not worry about $300 billion? Because it is hoopla. I've been in this business of big numbers, lots of zeros. And you know what? Unless you see reasonableness. I mean, what are they going to do? Change all of the regulations just to for the sake of accommodating and feeling good and because we're tired and we want to take our ball and go home? Really? Change all the regulations? Lift all the sanctions all at once? Is it possible? Jian, did you know that it's not just the federal government? It's not just the UN regime of sanctions. You know, who's the wealthiest entity in the United States? It's not Bill Gates. It's not Warren Buffett. It's not even Elon Musk. It's the retirement funds. Belongs to a class completely separate. It's a retirement fund for the workers and for people who are relying on the future on that. You know what? These retirement funds have placed sanctions on the Islamic Republic. How are you gonna lift the sanctions placed by the California Retirement Fund? Who's gonna force them to do that? JD Vance?
Do you
I don't
think?
think
Do you think that just to take your argument that I think many people would hope is true that this is all theater hoopla, as you say? Do you think the regime knows that ultimately?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, the biggest mistake is for us to assume that people in Iran, I mean, I was talking to a very learned analyst inside Iran who was admonishing me for correcting my thoughts and saying, look, you guys look at a bunch of clerics wearing these funny robes and going around, and yes, I am making fun of them because it makes me happy. Uh, and you think the country is run by these robed and turbaned men. It's not, not at all. They're very, very prepared minds, conniving and working every day to pull wool over the eyes of the people of Iran, neighboring countries in the Persian Gulf, and the world, including the United States and Israel. So do not underestimate the crafty nature of the players in the Islamic Republic. They're brutal, brutal, educated minds in Iran that run the country. So, and unfortunately, corruption is systematic. The country is falling apart, trying to look like it's together. It's not together. $500 million a day is what the country is leaking in finances. The whole organization in military intelligence. Look at it. You know, the justice minister has a term of 5 years. Now you ask yourself, if he is not, he's brutal, he's a hanging judge. If he is being removed, what is that a sign of? What's this deal about Mujtaba being alive or not alive? What's the deal with that? Look, Jian, if you were in this situation and you needed to have a hidden power, just like the 12th Imam, that you could talk anything on his behalf and say, no, no, you can't see him. He's not there. He's he's in a safe place issuing orders. Seriously?
Right.
What would you do? You would do that so that you could say, yeah, 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 it's the order of the supreme leader that you need to be removed. There is a purification of the system. You know how I know that? A couple of words. Listen to Oliboff. Oliboff is describing a class of revolutionaries as super revolutionaries, and is referring to Khamenei's words, mocking them, saying them, ah, look, look at these super revolutionaries. All of a sudden, if you're looking for a 180-degree change in the attitude of those who claim to have power in Iran, like Ghalibaf. Listen to them. Listen to them. They are not as confident as they like us to believe they are.
Right.
They're not. So it's tough. I know, Jian, you're a reasonable, learned man, and obviously, quite justifiably, you're questioning. You're questioning all of the conflicting this and that and the other.
We all have to, don't we?
Yes, we
We all,
have
yeah.
to. We have to. Absolutely. However, as long as we question within reason and logic, and as long as we agree that we might not know the answer, in fact, there's a very, very big possibility we don't know the answer. What we think is the answer may not be the answer. And that's precisely the whole point in this kind of operation. We do not need to know. We are eager, anxious, curious, but none of that counts.
Well,
What counts is a need to know, and we don't have that need right
I
now.
always, I respect your wisdom and your experience. I don't have to agree with everything you say to completely respect everything that you say. The most powerful thing you said today, frankly, is that when you said Trump was wrong about what he said, because it suggests that you're not just someone who comes on to say yay Trump about every. It's refreshing to hear that and to put it in context. I know you're not saying that you disagree with all that he's done, but about that statement, which you made a couple times. It was a pledge to the Iranian people that, as you know, in the Iranian space, got a lot of oxygen. A lot of people were taking that to the bank, if you will. And so when you say that was not the right move, that's a very powerful to
Let me
hear from you.
balance that. Let me balance that.
You don't
Gian.
need to balance that. You spent half an hour balancing that.
No, let me
One
balance
thing
that.
you said, the one time you said.
That's a very, very correct thing to say, to bring it up, to highlight it. And I know you're pleased that somebody who's a supporter of most of the policies of President Trump has the veracity.
Yeah, I think
He
it's
doesn't
great. I
require
think it's
courage.
great to. I think it's great
Just
to
telling
point
the
out even
truth.
when even with Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, even with whomever we support. Yeah, I think it's okay to say, hey, this might not be the right move. This is a great move.
Of
This is
course
a
it is. Of
yeah.
course. However, Xian, while we don't have all of the information we need, we do know that body bags were ordered prior to, that killers were imported prior to. There is no causality directly defined here, unfortunately. Facts dispute that.
No, the causality is that
It's
actually
not like
that
this.
causality is not the issue. The causality is not the issue.
Left is on the way. People went out.
For
They got
sure,
killed.
that's not it. I'm not bringing that issue up. I'm talking about the aftermath, the now 6 months down the road, that the expectation that we had this, that there's this ally that I think a lot of people bought into, even if they believed that Trump is doing this for his own reasons, there was this expectation that, and so if the MOU is theatrics and this is part of the process and we're in a phase, I think we'll find that out eventually. If it isn't, then it would be a sense of betrayal, right?
Xian, if we don't claim that Trump, Rubio, Hexet, Witkoff, Kushner, whoever is involved here, whoever's involved, Vance, if we don't claim that they're absolutely crazy and they need to be committed to a mental institution, we either have to believe that or say to ourselves, maybe this is just a game. Maybe it's not, you're right. But that's where we are. We question the reasonableness of what's before our eyes. We either have to say, yeah, these are all crazy. They have to be committed to an institution. They're crazy. This is stupid. Why are they doing that? We could either say that or say, well, maybe there are things we don't know. And how do we know? Read the MOU. When you read the MOU, as you said it so elegantly, it is not worth the paper it's written on, without a doubt. But are we worried? Yes. What if it's true? Who could say with any degree of confidence that this is for sure this is the fifth hit? It's not real. Who could say that? Nobody could say that. But if you say that, then you have to really agree to a shift in international order of the greatest scale of changing a lot of things. And I think there's all kinds of possibilities, but we always have to be guided by reason, or else we can believe the sky's falling.
I appreciate you as ever. I hope you come on again soon. It's always a pleasure for me. Thank you for this.
Happy to be with you. Thank you.
Khodafis. There you go. Two of our most popular guests back to back on this 450th edition of Roqe. Thank you very much to Mr. Bijan Kian and Dr. Shahram Kholdi. Always appreciate their perspectives. They always say something that tweaks somebody in the audience and we get a response, and I appreciate that, and we look forward to hearing from you on this. If you have anything to say about what you've just heard from Mr. Kian and Dr. Kholdi, please email us at info@roqemedia.com, info@roqemedia.com, or post on any of our platforms, including on Instagram, where you can also link to our tickets for Roqe Live 6. So you can comment on the show and also get tickets for Roqe Live 6 in one place. We look forward to seeing you at Roqe Live. This is full time for this program today. Thank you. Thank you to the amazing team who put this show together each week currently as part of this Iran Rises series, and we lead up to Roqe Live 6. Super Paris Hassan Girani, savvy Roham Meher, and the photo and video queen Tina Farahi. Special thanks as well to Smart Pega, Charming Kimia, Talented Anahita, Methodical Kaveh, and the Rising Kian for your help. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content the way you do. Please subscribe if you've not done so already on any or all of our platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, CastBox. You can find us on Instagram at Roqe Media. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. You can get your tickets there for Roqe Live 6. Once again, thank you, and as ever, Mizun Bashi.